So brought Kayla's 944 over here to 944 Barn to start prepping for the Overcrest Rally in Arkansas in the fall. So rather than take the E23 again, or a different car, we've decided to take her 944. But in order to do that and have this car be as versatile as it can be and should be for the Overcrest Rally, through the Ozark Mountains, gravel roads, you know, everything that I suspect we hit in Utah, just in Arkansas, we really need to go through the suspension. And we'll talk about that a little later. But for right now, we're gonna go jet skiing. So this was kind of Jules's idea.
Yeah.
So Elliot called me and his wife heard that we were gonna come out here for the day. And normally when we come out here, we like to do something other than just car stuff too. We try to go for a hike, or we rode the skate park one time. We just do something else as well. And she's like, let's go jet skiing. So we're going jet skiing, and it's a nice day for it. So we're gonna go do that first before it gets super hot, and then we'll come back and we'll talk to you guys about what we're gonna be doing on the 944 and what we still need to figure out on the 944. All right, so we're out on some jet skis with Elliot and Jules, chilling in this little cove, ripped across. What is this, Lake Hiawassee? It's beautiful out here. It's a perfect day. And the view of the mountains from this lake are incredible. Fun fact, I haven't swam in like 21 years, something like that. Like actually haven't been buoyant in water in like 21 years. So they peer pressured me to get off the jet ski.
This is not peer pressure.
I'm weird about like lakes. I had no interest to swim in the last 20 years, let's put it that way. And this is coming from a New Hampshire kid in the lakes region who's trestle jumped and rope swings and try to do backflips in the water and all that. Kind of don't really care about swimming, but I did, and you got to see me.
I'm so proud of you.
Still remember how to swim. Float on my back, treading water, just like riding a bike. We're gonna rip around a little bit more and then get some lunch. It is very nice out today. Okay, so we're back at Elliot's place. It's an awesome morning out on the water. We're going to talk a little bit about what we really want to do to Kayla's 944. Many of you guys may have seen the episode I did on her 944 when Elliot himself came by my shop and we lowered it. Now we did it the freeway. The rear end of these cars have a torsion tube with torsion bars, and those torsion bars are splined, much like a Volkswagen Beetle or a Volkswagen Bus. And what we did was we took the whole rear end out. We dropped the whole rear end out, pulled the spring plates off, and re-indexed them up 2 splines and reassembled everything. And then in the front, we just took a couple coils out. So it's just got cut springs in the front, re-indexed torsion bars in the rear. But it rides as you would imagine. We want to be able to adjust the height. We want to bring it up a little bit. She loves skating that car. She loves driving it low. But we want to bring it up a little bit so we can handle some of the gravel roads we might encounter in the Ozark Mountains on the rally. But we also want it to ride better. So going to a coilover setup, front and rear, will do away with the torsion bars, but also give us better dampening with our shocks. Overall, we'll have a better riding car. So let's go inside. We'll take a look at what Elliot has for components, for parts, what may be compatible and what may not. Okay, so if I have this right, there's no aftermarket coilover options for the early 944s, right?
In the rear.
In the rear.
That I know of.
Okay. Well, I would think you would know.
There might be some out there, but I don't know.
Okay, so as far as we can get our hands on right now, we don't have anything for the rear for coilover. So we're trying to figure out what will work. Now, you've recently started carrying Reaction.
Reaction USA coilovers.
Yep. No, those are for the late offset 944s.
Yeah, so they sell them currently either for 85.5 and 86 NA, which is early front, and aluminum rear, which is like a late style mount in the rear.
Yep.
Or late NA, which is 87 and up, and that fitment also includes all the turbos, S2s, and 968s.
Okay.
So all those will work. The only thing that they don't make coilovers for is the rear for an early car with the steel rear trailing arms.
That's right. Yeah, because the late ones are aluminum.
So like the aluminum rear trailing arms are the same for all the earlier late offset, but the hubs are different.
Yeah. So this here is a first year 944. So these are the early ones in which Elliot is saying they don't, well, at least Reaction does not make coilovers for it.
Right.
Nor does anyone else that we know of for the rear.
That I know of.
My thought process going into this was, well, the rear trailing arms on this car are steel, which means I can cut and weld to them. I have a TIG welder at the shop, but I'm not trying to cut and weld to the aluminum rear trailing arms. Just not my strong point. So the fact that these are steel, I'm willing to do what's necessary to get a set of those Reaction coilovers set up in the back. If we can mount them up top, and I can make a new cage or new box on the rear trailing arms to mount them, we'll do that. But now we're trying to figure out what the front is going to give us, right? Because the front has a different 2-bolt pattern on the spindle, right?
Yeah, the difference is the spacing between the bolt holes and also the thickness.
Of the spindle.
Right here.
Yep. Okay, so
So-
your dropouts would be different spaces as well on the Reactions, right? It wouldn't be this distance, it'd be like wider or narrower.
Yeah, if it's the late version. So currently I've got a few kits in stock, but they're all the late type.
Yeah.
If I had an early type, your fronts would bolt on perfectly,
Okay.
but I don't have a front.
But are they accessible? Can they be ordered?
Yeah, I can order some, but they're not going to get them until late September,
Yeah, okay.
which wouldn't work for you.
Yeah, we need them by the
Over press
9th
rally.
of October. So that being said, we have a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours,
Right.
has sent you some coilovers that we are pretty sure were for a 944?
They're Seicas, which they do make 944 coilovers, but he never used them, and I can't get him on the phone to ask him what they were from.
Yeah.
And so they do fit on this early spindle, but it's not perfect. Like, you have
it's-
to open that hole a little bit.
That's close enough to be able to work. So what we were now wondering is, will this threaded body, be the right diameter and thread pitch to thread onto the Reaction coilovers, giving us the lower mount that we could use? And apparently the answer is yes. Wow, okay. If we end up using a new set of Reactions in the front of this car, well, and hopefully the back too,
Yeah.
but we need these, and he needs these
Yeah.
with the old coilovers. Yeah, maybe we start doing some,
It's a perfect swap.
many of you guys may want to see the CNC table get fired up, because we could make these exactly the way we need to, but with these being so close, I wouldn't be hesitant to just modify these. All right, so perhaps we have the fronts somewhat sorted out. And I guess all we got to do now is take a set of rears that you have and see if we can get them to work in the rear of this car.
Yeah.
All right, so you guys have seen, or you may have seen, the episode I did on the channel where Elliot had his open house and he just built this shop. He was working out in his driveway for years in Georgia. What's up, Beetlejuice? What's up, buddy? Elliot specializes in 944 and the like, 924, 968, 951 parts, as you can see. So this is floor 1 of floor 2 of parts collection. And what we're going to show you guys, we're going to pull out an early and a late trailing arm because we can. All right, so here are the noticeable differences between the early and late trailing arms. Now, the first thing is steel aluminum. And obviously the way the shock mounts too, you've got this steel cage here that the shock goes down through, whereas on the late one, the shock just mounts offset to the actual casting of the lower mount. So these are the rear Reaction late 944 coilovers.
Right. Now they have an offset sleeve thing here that mounts this way to space it away from
Right, the trailing arm.
arm.
Yep. The top mount from the early to late 944s are the same.
Same.
The only thing we need to figure out is getting that mount to mount inside this cage, or just something that can be designed there.
Yeah, the other issue is going to be the spring hitting right
yeah.
here.
Yep. That's the other thing we don't know because this is just sitting on the ground.
Yeah.
What the angle has to be to mount into the car.
Right. And you don't want to convert to this because you'll lose offset on the wheels. You'd have to rebuild the wheels.
Which Kayla has built for this car.
So you don't
Yeah.
want to do that. You want to stick with these arms so that you can have those deep dish
Yep.
wheels.
We're not going to the aluminum arms because we want to keep the wheels that have been built for the car. We want to keep the track width there. All right, so development in what we're doing. We previously said we don't want to run the aluminum arms to aggressively change our track width because of the custom BBS RSs that Kayla built for the car. But Elliot just noticed something. So I know where you're going with this, but explain what you just found as to why we might be able to run the aluminum arms.
Okay, so I noticed this little piece of aluminum here, that the factory aluminum 21 millimeter spacer.
Which is factory.
It's factory.
I learned about that with mine.
Factory, but only on the steel trailing arm cars. And if you take it off, the wheel will sit in further. And that's why I thought that the wheels were built to be ran on these steel arms without the spacer. Now, I think if you switch to the aluminum trailing arms
Without the spacer.
and without the spacer, you'll end up with the exact same offset. The wheel's still going to sit exactly in the same place because that's what those aluminum arms were designed to be.
Yep.
For the 85.5 and 86 cars with the early offset hubs.
Which means we might be able to get away with just doing a trailing arm swap,
Yes.
no fabrication,
Right.
which doesn't make for the best content, but will make things way easier for our trajectory to get this thing ready for the rally.
Bingo. This would be essentially a bolt-on application instead of fabrication.
Yep.
Yeah.
And incredibly informative for anyone who's got an early 944 who wants to run coilovers without fabrication involved.
Yeah, that's something I do all the time is I'll convert the steel rear suspension to the aluminum type, but it has to be 85.5 and 86 to keep the wheels early offset. If it's 87 or later, then those hubs are further outboard and
Yep.
the wheel will end up sticking out. further.
Yep, you need a higher offset wheel. That's why the early 944s had a more negative offset wheel to fill in that wheel well.
Right.
All right, well, it's always a learning experience. I learned a whole bunch on the 924S, building the air suspension for that, mostly from Elliot. And continuing to learn some of these weird gray area 944 knowledge things. All right, so what are we looking at now?
Okay, so these are exactly the same arms, but two different hubs. So this is 85.5, 86 rear hub, and this is 87 and up. And you can see how much
Oh,
further
wow.
away it's spaced.
Wow.
So technically, this is the same offset as that with that
With
21 millimeter spacer,
Yes, that's right.
right? Because this whole thing is actually in a little bit more than where this sits.
And you can see how much longer the studs are.
right, yeah, that's
From-
meant for that spacer.
Yep. It's from the factory. Long studs for the factory spacer.
Yeah, factory. Fun fact, they started out doing it this way because it derived from the 924, which was narrow body. And so when they made the wider body for the 944, they figured the way to space the wheel out was to just add a spacer rather
With
than
longer studs.
rather than redesigning the whole suspension.
Makes sense.
That's why it has a factory 21 millimeter spacer. So what you need is a pair of these aluminum arms with the early offset hubs from an 85.5 or 86. But in order to do the conversion, you need the spring plate that attaches to here because it's a little different. You can see the shape of this versus the shape of that. So it's easy to swap when you have this all apart. You'll need the spring plate, and then you also need the axles from a later car, 85.5 or up, which are just longer
That's right.
because of this
Yep,
stub
yep,
axle.
where they meet there
Right.
and how far in they meet here. So they go way in there. Might have found the answer.
And technically the brake rotor, because the inner diameter of the rotor is different here.
Oh, okay. Let's go diving through Elliot's parts bin.
There we go.
Yep.
So this is an early offset. You see the rotor difference?
See how small that rotor is compared
Right.
to...
This one.
Yep. Wow, yeah, it's obvious. We're down to like the last few too that you have pulled already.
So this is left side turbo, but it's early offset
Yep.
aluminum arm. So there's a left
And right.
And a right. So we need to get axles and
spring plates. So we're in parts building number 2. 944 parts everywhere. I mean, just everything.
Okay, here we go. So this shape right here, that's the later type that we need. And this is the early type.
That's right.
And that's why you can't just use them, like you have to switch them with the arm that they're compatible with.
Yep.
I don't know that I would choose this one because the bushing is nasty.
Right.
I'm going to keep looking.
So we've got spring plates. We've got late axles, which are longer than the early ones. And we've got 2 dressed trailing arms, left side and right side, with good parking brake cables. We have our formula set up for the reaction coilovers with these Sika lower fork dropouts for the front. And man, huge thanks to Elliot, as always, for all of this. Just the knowledge, but also being a cache of parts, knowing where we can get parts.
That's what I do.
Pretty excited about that. We won't have to do a lot of fabrication. And if you guys have an early 944, you'll be able to do this swap too with just mid-year components. All right, guys, we are back in Chattanooga, back at the shop. Everything we need, as far as we know, to get Kayla's 944 sorted out for the Overcrest Rally in October in Arkansas. So I might actually end up going back to Elliot's with this in the next week or so to do this entire suspension conversion with him. Well, at least in this episode, we got a lot of knowledge put together for this 944. We figured out what will work, what won't work. So if you have an early model 944 that you want to put coilovers on, do a full coilover conversion, get rid of the torsion bars and all that, get the 85.5 to 86 rear end for these cars. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. That's the formula, 1985.5 to 1986 944 rear end, aluminum arms. Everything will bolt on. Your calipers, your rotors, everything will transfer over. So I hope this was informative enough for you guys. The next episode you see the 944 in will be us doing the full suspension conversion, going to a full coilover setup. Thank you guys so much for watching and for all of the support. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's helping the channel grow in a huge way. So I appreciate all of you guys. We'll see you in the next episode.